Greetings, I'm Rosalind Parks, and thank you for tuning in to this edition of National Network View News. ABC recently aired the series Women of the Movement, based on the true story of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old Black youth brutally murdered in 1955 while visiting relatives in Mississippi. His murder garnered the attention of the nation and sparked the civil rights movement.
Got to get this. We're shooting Women of the Movement, the story of Emmett Till and his mother, Mamie Till, who I am giving support, playing a supporting role as stand-in for Mamie. Feel very honored about that. But we're here on this, what used to be a plantation here in Mississippi, and I am a little bit emotional because it's not so far in my past, but my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunts, my uncles, cousins, they all chop cotton here in this land. My mother went one time, but she was a little special, so she never went back. So it's very, very surreal to be shooting a cotton field scene, getting dressed this morning, and then getting dressed here on the set. I knew how to dress because I watched my family members do that.
Joining us today for this live special broadcast on the legacy of Emmett Till is Iman Ali, ambassador for the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation, production member on ABC's recently aired series Women of the Movement, and curator of the Women of the Movement exhibits. She is also a healer and integrative therapist and Reiki master teacher. Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Sister Iman, can you
Yes,
give us an overview of your work and tell us how you became involved with the Emmett Till Project?
absolutely. I am a journalist by trade. Began my career at the Final Call newspaper back in the early 90s, and then went on to do broadcast television from there. I think what happened in transit between the Final Call and broadcasting was the death of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls, which caused Snoop to make a phone call to Minister James at the time to reach out to the minister Farrakhan to have a hip hop summit, really to end the East Coast and the West Coast beef at that time. So that was a pivotal moment because, of course, I grew up on hip hop. But to see all of the artists that I knew and loved emerge on the south side of the city of Chicago, I was still a journalist at the Final Call at that time. And I realized that, that was the beginning because in that room with the likes of Snoop and just so many big names, Minister Farrakhan called for those young men to take responsibility, to take back responsibility for their talent, their work, their lyrics. And that was the beginning of what I saw as a movement in hip hop because after that, Russell Simmons and Dr. Benjamin Chavis then launched the Hip Hop Summit Action Network, which I thought that was them making Minister Farrakhan's word bond and institutionalizing it. And so I immediately wanted to go to work and to help with that project. And so I began in 2004 and organized the first Hip Hop Summit Action Network voter registration drive in the city of Chicago. And so what they were doing was what Minister Farrakhan asked them to do, using hip hop as a catalyst for social change. And so we felt that if hip hop could sell all of the Courvoisier and Nikes and certain cars, then we could also use our voices to affect change. And at that point, it was, voter registration. Barack Obama was our Illinois senator at the time. Hip hop did not know him. I was the first to introduced him to the hip hop community at that summit there in Chicago. Brought Kanye West, who had just dropped College Dropout. And so it was a pivotal moment for me and the beginning of my career in the entertainment industry, organizing that first summit there in Chicago. And
Mm.
so over the years, I then went on to launch Russell Simmons's Get Your Money Right financial literacy tour, bringing about $3.5 million to that hip hop summit to fund that nationally, to teach our people, young people, about finances and
Mhm.
that last piece. So that started it, and then from there, of course, when you work with Russell Simmons, everybody kind of wants what Russell had back in the day, especially during the Fat Farm and Baby Fat days of Def Jam, etc. And so it opened the door for me to do other social cause initiatives for different artists. So everyone from Kanye's art education program that he did with his mom prior to her death, to bringing Snoop's Football League into the city of Chicago. And so just worked over more than a decade in social cause initiatives with artists, helping them to give back to the communities that they came from. Of all of the people that I worked with, I had not worked with Jay-Z nor Will Smith, and but I got the opportunity just recently when um, Emmett Till's cousin reached out to me, and she said, "You won't believe this, but there's a project going on in Mississippi, and it's called Women of the Movement, and it's being produced by Jay-Z and Will Smith, and it's about Emmett Till." And at that time, I met Mamie Till in 2001 when I was producing television news in Chicago. I met her over the phone. I thought it was going to be like a 5 to 10 minute conversation because we were setting up the interview for her during Black History Month. But it turned out to be an hour and a half long conversation. And she shared some very, very key things with me that I think was a catalyst for what has happened just recently, and sort of passing the torch, if you will. And this was 2 years prior to her death, and reminding me of my responsibility as a Black journalist, and as a Black woman from the Delta of Mississippi as well, not too far from where Emmett was murdered. And so 2001 to 2014, I met her cousin and protege, Deborah Watts, who is the founder of the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation. And I immediately became a member as an ambassador for the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation. And so we've had a working relationship since 2014. And shortly after, met another cousin of Emmett Till on the set of the James Brown movie Get On Up in Jackson, Mississippi. And so that's how the Till family and I became, close, working together. And I said, we're sisters of the movement.
Mhm.
We're here and doing the work. There should be a television show about the work that we're doing, not just love and hip hop and housewives of Atlanta, but women who are doing a serious work toward the advancement of our people. And that was in 2015, and the three of us had met on Emmett Till's birthday that year. And so they were so shocked. We all were shocked that women of the movement came around 5 years later, after I
Mm.
spoke that into existence, and it being about Emmett was very significant to us. And so I reached out when she gave me the information. I said, "Oh, this is definitely something for me." And
Mm.
just soon after, I think 2 minutes, I got a call back from the casting director who said that she wanted to interview me. And she said that she wanted to offer me a position as a production position as a stand in for Mamie Till. And so Adrian and I, which you see in the back here, who sort of look alike, same height, same color scheme, all of that they were looking at when they were looking for the person who would stand in for her. So a stand in does the work of the main lead actress. There we are. And so we are on set together, on and off. Everything that you saw Adrienne do as Mamie Till, I had to do behind the scenes. So stand-ins are used for the principal actors when they are not on set to do the set, to the lighting, the setting up the shot, sound, just everything, rehearsals. Sometimes you do their lines for them. And so there's team one, which is all the lead actors, and then there's team two, which is the stand-in actors. And so I was chosen as Mamie Till with Tony Award winner Adrienne Warren.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. So, speaking of the Women of the Movement series, when did the series air and how many episodes were in the limited series?
Yeah, so we began shooting that last January 2021, and we shot that for 3 months in the Delta of Mississippi. And so there you see the Chicago set that looks like a scene in Chicago. That's the recreation of Emmett and Mamie's home, the house where he left in 1955 and never came back. That top, the red building is a replica of their Chicago home, and they lived on the second floor there. So that's all in Greenwood, Mississippi. They did such a great job recreating that. That show aired, it was 6 series. If you can just imagine shooting for 3 to 4 months. So it's a six episodes, 2 hours each. And it aired January 6th, 13th, and 20th of this past January. It's still available on Hulu by demand. So if you missed it on ABC, you can still catch Women of the Movement on Hulu.
Perfect. Now, what aspects of Emmett Till's life were featured in the Women of the Movement series?
Yeah, everything. The main part, I mean, I remember my first day on set was giving birth to Emmett. And that gave me some backdrop. I learned so much about him through that because I did know his story, even having trouble in his birth. He was a breached baby. And so they had to use the forceps to turn him, which was very painful for her as well as him. And his head actually came out a little bit bashed in from all of this pulling. And he was born with blue eyes. Such irony in his story. But my first day on set was giving birth to him. So being in that hospital room and having that anxiousness about Emmett, but also in the back of my mind, knowing you're about to give birth to, someone whose life is really going to be cut short. So I was, weaving in and out of time traveling, 1955, 2021. And it was pretty simple. So we went from his birth to him as a young teenager in the city of Chicago with his mom. His grandmother was a real important role figure in his life and in his mom's life as well. And then his trip from Chicago to Mississippi and what that was like for him. And so you see that those are the pieces that are shown in the film of his life. But you just see him as a really beautiful young man. I've actually met a lot of his childhood friends on the actual block that he lived on for his 80th, what would have been his 80th birthday, which was this past June 25th was his, July 25th, I apologize, was that date for Emmett's 80th birthday, would have been. And some of those friends still live on that block there in Chicago.
Okay. Well, Sister Iman, we have much more to cover with you, but right now we're going to pause for announcements from our sponsors. And when we return, we'll recount the murder case of Emmett Till and the courage of his mother, Mamie Till. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
「 Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
The hashtag #BankBlack social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
The murder case for Emmett Till had been open for 60 years, but was recently closed despite Carolyn Bryant's admission to lying.
I'm Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., speaking in strong support of the new documentary film that's coming out about Emmett Till. Really thank Jay-Z and Will Smith and all those that help support this important effort. We need justice for Emmett Till. After all these years, after all these decades, Emmett Till still cries out from his grave for justice. His mother, Mrs. Mamie Mobley, who I knew personally, is crying out from her grave for justice for her son. I happen to know Tim Tyson, who is a great writer. He's my homeboy from North Carolina, at Duke University professor, wrote a book about Emmett Till. And Carolyn Bryant, who first lied that led to the death and murder and brutal lynching of Emmett Till back in the 1950s, is still alive. But she admitted to Tim Tyson when he wrote this book that she lied, that she made up this whole thing about Emmett Till disrespecting her. And then, of course, when Tim Tyson published his book, she recanted her denial. So, you know, we need to get the truth out. And that's why this documentary is so important. Let us demand justice for Emmett Till.
Sister Iman, thank you again for joining us today. Can you talk about Emmett's death and the courage of his mother, Mamie Till, to make sure the world knew what happened to her son?
Yes, it was, again, we learned so much about Mamie, so much about the process that she went through on the set, actually, of Women of the Movement. The strategy as a mother finding out, first of all, she did not want her son to go to Mississippi. She knew Emmett was a very vibrant and self-confident young Black male. He grew up in Chicago, but he was so well-mannered, but very, very, you would maybe call him flamboyant. He loved to dress. So you always see him in his little tie and his white shirt, cufflinks. He wanted to wear cufflinks on the trip, you know, and wanted to wear his father's ring, Louis Till. And the irony there is that Louis Till, Emmett's father, was also lynched 10 years prior to his son being lynched. He was lynched, Louis Till was lynched in Italy by the U.S. Army, accused of something very similar of raping a white woman and murder of a white woman. They never found or had any hard evidence against him. It was him and another young man who was also in the Army at that time. Never got any word, maybe never got any word back about exactly why he died, said that he died in combat, but he really was hung over in Italy. And so this ring that Emmett had on that she allowed him to wear happened to be the one thing that enabled them to identify him when they pulled his body from the Tallahatchie River. What I found was that it was such a shock to Mamie to lose her son, but when she finally saw his body, which they did not want to come out of Mississippi, by the way, there was a word that came down from the sheriff to the coroner to bury him so that no one would see his body, bury him even before his mother actually said. And she said in an interview, I don't know what made them think that they could bury my son, without my permission. And so there were people, and Mamie went to work right away. Her and her mother were very, especially her mom, very influential in the city of Chicago when it came to the Church of God in Christ. They got the NAACP involved, and a doctor by the name of Dr. T.R.M. Howard there in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, played an integral role in getting Emmett's body out of Mississippi and back to Chicago. So that was a whole ordeal for her to even get her son's body and his remains back. They didn't even want to open it because the state of Mississippi put a seal on the casket saying that this casket, this box is never to be opened. Well, Mamie said she would take a crowbar if she had to open that casket and see what was in there. And what she found was horrifying. And she said, no one will ever believe me. No one will believe what they've done. So open the casket, let the world see what they did to my son. And so that night, she wanted to wake immediately after she saw it. Don't do anything to his body. Let everyone see. And so that was a very strategic thing that she did. And she also got Jet Magazine, Chicago Defender, all of them there, the press, the Black press, to film that, to shoot that, and to send that around, his image around the world through that Jet Magazine. So she was fearless. She said, I can't grieve right now. I got work to do.
Did Mamie Till receive any resistance about her decision to hold an open casket funeral after his murder?
Well, everybody was trying to have her not to do that, of course, not to, for her to have to go through it. But she was very clear that they needed to see this. They needed to see the type of hatred that would do this to a little boy, and that hatred that was still in the Deep South. She said in her first speech, which I had to do this on set, by the way, in the rehearsal, she said that, a couple months ago, I had a 6-room apartment. I had a son. I had a job. She said, and I said, whatever happened to Negroes in the South, that's their business, not mine. She said, now I know how wrong I was. And the death of my son has proven to me that whatever happens to any of us, anywhere around the world, had better be the business of all of us. So in some ways, she was in a middle-class neighborhood there in Chicago, Woodlawn. So in many ways, she had thought she had escaped Jim Crow, Mississippi, but it came back 1955, August 28th.
Now, the murder case for Emmett Till had remained open for the last 60 years and was only recently officially closed. And that was due to what exactly? Carolyn Bryant, who admitted that she lied, was never, or to my knowledge, was never convicted. Are there any plans to charge her? Why do you think
it's
this has
interesting
happened?
that happened while the year that we were doing this project, okay? The likes of Jay-Z, the likes of Will Smith, ABC. You had some pretty powerful brands and names that's going to get. Mind you, this story has never been told fully. Now, of course, there's been some documentaries out, but not in where millions and millions of people can see it at one time, like we have today. And so, it's the irony that came out right the same year as we were filming and doing this production. Same time, also you see coming behind it, same year last year, Whoopi Goldberg, by the way, was filming Emmett Till the movie. So it's called Till actually, and it will come to the big screen later this year. And so that was filmed last year too. So never before had you seen a story about one person on television, but then also coming to, cinema and coming to the big screen. I just think that the timing of that, knowing that there could be pressure on that. What we do know is that there's no statute of limitation on murder. Carolyn Bryant, yes, admitted to the writer about all of that did not happen how she said it happened, and she did that. And it's in the movie, and if you all get to see that, and if you haven't seen it, please go on Hulu and see it. But that was from the FBI files, all of that. But the issue here is that the family of Emmett Till is still calling for charges to be brought against Carolyn Bryant as an accomplice in Emmett Till's murder, because we know that she helped to identify Emmett that night that they kidnapped him. And so whether she lied or not, it did not justify them doing what they did, if he did do any of that. However, her being at the scene when they kidnapped him and identifying him as the boy from Chicago, well, that makes you an accomplice. And even though she's 88 years old, we believe that if Bill Cosby can go to jail, so can she.
Good point. Do you think Emmett Till and the family will ever receive justice?
I do. There's a God of justice on the scene today. And it's no irony that 1955, Emmett's death, Allah answered them with the coming in of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to the Nation of Islam and meeting the Honorable Elijah Muhammad same year. So as it's been 66 years, okay, since Emmett's death, 67 coming up, that's just how long, we've had that spirit that they tried to kill in Emmett through Minister Farrakhan, never wanting to see that. So the God of justice is on the scene, and God has a way of righting the wrongs of yesterday. And I think that even with seeing these two major projects come out, Emmett's spirit still haunts America. He's still crying out from the grave, as Dr. Ben Chavis said, and it'll continue to cry until justice is served.
Right. And as you mentioned, it has been over 66 years from the murder of 14-year-old Emmett Till. And since 1955, the murders of Black people in general still continue, from Trayvon to Ahmaud
Yes.
Arbery
Yes.
and so many more.
Yes.
Will the passage of the Till anti-lynching bill deter the perpetrators of these crimes?
No, because we've had bills and we've had laws before. I think that, what we've seen with Ahmaud Arbery's case, and I do work with Ahmaud Arbery's family. I actually left Women of the Movement on the 1-year anniversary of Ahmaud's death and came back to Georgia to be with them, to help them in their healing process. And what's in the person's heart and what's in their mind and the mind of white supremacy, that no law can change that. Mississippi, there were laws out when they did what they did to Emmett, and Mississippi had its own set of rules, and so my biological cousin was just lynched in 2009, hanging from a tree. That was on a cover of the Final Call newspaper in Greenwood, Mississippi, where we filmed Emmett's story. So all of this is not gone anywhere. It's going to take a higher law, God's law, to correct some of this that's happening, really all of it, and wipe it from the face of the earth. That's the only thing that I see is going to be able to cleanse this, what ails America.
Mm-hmm. And you have spoken about our collective trauma,
Yeah.
which lingers on from experiencing so many murders perpetrated on Black people. Do you think, or do you believe that the current violence that we see plaguing Chicago is a direct result of a generational trauma that has plagued Black people for so many years?
Absolutely. You know, so many of our people left the Mississippi Delta in search
Yeah.
of a better future and a better life. And they went to Chicago, um, Detroit. But a lot of that trauma, trail of blood and trail of trauma, coming from this Mississippi into Chicago, still the blood spilling out now with black on black crime, but it's what we call post traumatic slave disorder or syndrome. This is the generational traumas from the onset of slavery all the way to modern police brutalities. And the irony here is that when we filmed Emmett Till's funeral, I was in the church with the casket by myself until all the other actors came in there. And I was having a moment, and I had a vision where I saw all of these black men who had been murdered filling in the pews at Emmett Till's funeral. Michael Jackson, Prince, Tupac, all of them. And I'm saying, why am I seeing them? Well, they too were murdered. They too were part of modern day lynchings, whether that was for their catalog and their music, which you've seen them constantly steal. People work their lives off and then they die broke, Black artists. So this has been an ongoing thing for our people. And so, yes, I think the trauma in the city of Chicago is directly connected to all of this and the violence that we see. Because when you're in a stress induced state of mind, you're not in a mind, your front part of your brain that controls logical thinking isn't even working. Your prefrontal cortex not even working. So you can't even make logical decisions when you're stressed and when you're under fight or flight all the time. And if you stay in that, then there's going to be some psychological impact on you and in the communities that you live in. And so Emmett Till's old neighborhood is ravaged now. Sits in the middle of a war zone between those who killed King Von and those who killed Duck. That's a whole gang war going on over there. But we've started a community wellness center there, a couple of blocks from Emmett Till's home, called Salam Community Wellness Center, to help address some of this.
Good. Now, violence and the murder of Black people is one thing. Do you think that the fact that justice hasn't been served affects the Black psyche today as well?
Oh, absolutely. Because what it says to you is that my life isn't valuable. What it constantly keeps saying is that our lives aren't valued here. But our lives will never be valued until we value our lives, okay? Until we come together to do things to police our own communities, to educate our own children, to take care of our sick and our elderly. We have enough money, we have enough intelligence, we have enough knowledge on both sides to know that there's no one coming in our communities to save us, that there's no one coming to properly police us. There's no such thing. And so if we haven't gotten it yet after 400 plus years, then I'm not sure exactly what it's going to take for us to get it. But it's up to us to do for us and to pull our resources and to build the communities and the life that we want to see.
Right.
That's the only way it's going to stop.
Okay, we're going to move forward, and that we could talk about that and the effects that we have had that we're dealing with for just hours.
Yes.
But in relation to the women of the movement, the writer and the creator, Marissa Jo Serrar, and Capital Entertainment granted you the permission to curate loaning of the props to several museums nationally. Can you tell us about the Mound Bayou Museum exhibits in Mississippi?
Oh, absolutely. The city of Mount Bayou played a critical role in the history of the Emmett Till story. In fact, that doctor named Dr. T.R.M. Howard was a prominent Black doctor. And first, Mount Bayou was a city that was before Tulsa, Oklahoma. There was Mount Bayou. It was the first all Black sovereign town in the United States. And so you had some very progressive Black people there inside of this whole Jim Crow Mississippi. And so Mount Bayou, if it wasn't for Dr. T.R.M. Howard, then we probably would know Emmett's story, because he was influential in helping get Emmett's body out of Mississippi and back to Chicago. And then when Mamie was coming in for her son's murderer's trial, the KKK had put out that they would murder her on sight if they saw her and they had along the highways, there were state troopers who were involved to give any license plate that they saw that looked like they were from out of town, Blacks traveling. So they had to sneak Mamie Till back into Mississippi. It was like the Underground Railroad in reverse. And so when they got her in safely, she went directly to Dr. T.R.M. Howard's there in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, and he housed her there in his house. So it served as a safe house in his mansion, where he had 24-hour armed Black brothers securing him. And he slept with a .45 pistol next to his bed, because he was that much of a threat to white supremacy there in 1955 in Jim Crow, Mississippi. So he, Medgar Evers, is, you don't know, now the civil rights movement hasn't started yet, mind you, but this was the onset of it, as these key individuals there in Mount Bayou were assisting Mamie with getting back and forth to the trial. So and I think you asked me about the exhibit. And so that's why I chose 3 exhibits, or three museums to donate these pieces to. And I asked Marissa, so what happens to props, afterwards? And sometimes they just either sell them or they're in storage somewhere. And I said, we need to continue Emmett's story, and if we could curate a couple of museum exhibits. And so I sent some of the items, all of the items that were connected to his Mississippi trip and his time in Mississippi, including his murder, are there at the Mount Bayou Museum. So the cotton gin fan that held him down, the replica of the body that they pulled from the Tallahatchie River, his ring that he was wearing, that was his father's ring, that replica is there, the Jet magazines, and other items from, including the bed that they snatched him out of. All of those are there in Mississippi. I did bring his body and casket back to the city of Chicago. You see there's the casket replica, and me getting that that's going to be on display at DuSable Museum of African American History, a Smithsonian museum. And so we're working on that exhibit now. That exhibit will have a healing component to it, because we do not, we want to address the generational trauma as well. And then the items from the house that we duplicated in Mississippi are going to the Emmett Till Mobley House Museum. And that is his actual home, and which has now become a historic landmark. And so they're creating a museum out of that as well.
Now, you mentioned the DuSable Museum of African American History, which is the nation's oldest independent Black history museum.
Yeah.
Will the replica of Emmett Till's body and the casket remain at DuSable?
Yeah, well, they are on loan, so Kaplan Entertainment can, at any point. But I don't believe that they're going to want those items back to do anything with them. Right. So I think, we will. I don't know how long we will do, because we're still in the works of what that exhibit is going to look like, especially the healing component of that, so that the community, especially the city of Chicago, begins to heal from that murder that continues to haunt our people's psyche.
Now, the Till Mobley House Museum, which you mentioned as well,
Sure.
Where exactly is that located?
That's on I want to say the right one. St. Lawrence is the Woodlawn community there on the south side of the city of Chicago. So if you know city of Chicago, off of 67th Street, and I can't think of the exact address of it right now. But if you look up Till House Museum or Emmett Till's home, you'll be able to Google it and see it and go over there. Right now, you're not able to go into the house, but there are mural pictures of them on the outside, so you'll know that that's the house. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned something very important, which is these exhibits are available so that we can begin to heal. Is there a wellness component to these exhibits?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, we're working, especially with the DuSable Museum of African American History. We're working on a healing component where if you come after you view the body and what happened at the funeral. And the reason why that's very important, because that's really what's helped to spark the civil rights movement. And so it's important to be able to remember, as people say, we'll never forget and never again. So the healing component deals with being able to bring our people back into their parasympathetic nervous system, bring them back into a state of consciousness, show them how they can get themselves out of a state of anxiety. Because of course, even watching the Women of the Movement series, so many people said they had nightmares or that they were, really troubled by watching it. And so we're working on that part, especially with me as a Reiki master healer. I was doing a lot of healing work on set. We had psychologists on set standing by because we had some really tough scenes that we had to get through. But I had my crystal sound healing bowls out and my rain sticks, doing a lot of that while I was on set as well. So you'll see some of that in the exhibit as well.
Okay. Let's pause for announcements from our sponsors.
Sure.
Afterward, we will talk about the healing of the generational trauma murder cases like Emmett Till's cause on our community. We will be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Individually, we are poor when you compare us with white society in America. We are poor. Collectively, we are richer than all the nations in the world with the exception of 9. That's power right there if we know how to prove it. We begin the process of building a greater economic base. And at the same time, we are putting pressure where it really hurts. We don't have to argue with anybody. We just need to go around to these stores and to these massive industries in our country. Say, God sent us by here to say to you that you're not treating his children right. And we come by here to ask you to make the first item on your agenda fair treatment where God's children are concerned. Now, if you're not prepared to do that, we do have an agenda that we must follow. And our agenda calls for withdrawing economic support from you. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world.
AsiaticMinds.com. Online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. 2022 through 23 enrollment waiting list open now. Visit AsiaticMinds.com.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
The heartbreak that Black America faced when Emmett Till was murdered never healed. There was never justice for the crime. And now, in 2022, the murder of Black youth for no reason besides racism has become commonplace in the news.
That was a 14-year-old baby.
Say that
And
again.
took every part of his life.
Come on
Took
now.
everything
Don't
from
get
him.
me started.
His eyes,
Come on,
his
she
ears,
lied.
everything.
That's
What
right.
kind of
That's
human
right.
being
And
do
they-
that to another human being?
Yeah,
It
that's
made
right.
me think an animal caught a hold to the child
That's
instead of a
what
human
happened.
being.
That's what
You
happened.
took
That's
his
what
eyes,
happened.
you took his ears, and his mama let the world see how
Yes.
they did her baby.
That's right.
That is a hurtful thing in this world. But I ask God today that he stand with the Till family as well as he stand with the Aubrey family. That we get justice for these people that's killing our babies out here. Because we don't know what they could have turned out to be. That could have been our president. That could have been anything in this world. But y'all trying to take our legacy. But it ain't going to happen. Because it stopped today.
It stops today.
Today is 223.
Yes.
When my nephew got killed, it stopped today.
Yes.
No more death.
That's right.
We should live and not die.
That's right. Thank you.
As an urban Zen integrative therapist, sound therapist, and former research assistant at the Feinberg School of Medicine for the Osher Center for Integrative Medicine, is it possible to heal generational trauma?
Oh, absolutely. It's a part of what's promised to us, even in our scriptures, as we are very spiritual people. We are working very feverishly. And that video that you saw was of Ahmaud Arbery's auntie, who that was on February 23rd, the 1-year anniversary of his death last year, when I left the set of Women of the Movement in Emmett Till to come down and be with them. And what I did was I brought a yoga studio out into the community, because some of our people are not going to go into a yoga studio, or may not go into a yoga studio. And certainly if we can do what we can to bring it where they are and to help heal where they had never had a sound session before, sound bath, didn't know what was getting ready to go on. But they got on their yoga mats and with their props there. And I did some healing work for them using crystal sound therapy, and helping them in a very stressful day in their lives find some sense of peace and sense of normalcy in that moment. And the results were staggering. And so you hear her. I also read some words from Emmett Till's family to them on that day. And that meant so much to them as they were thinking back that, Emmett Till's family is reaching out to us. Yes, because you're standing in the same shoes that the Till family still stands in. They still haven't gotten justice. And so when there's not any justice done, then the soul does not really rest. The soul of the person that was doing that the injustice was done to, but also the entire family and the entire community and the people as a whole. And so we have to begin to do some healing work now. That's why Mamie said that she didn't want to hold anything in her heart about those people who killed her son. And the reason she said that was because what it was going to do to her body is by holding that in. So in some ways, people say that, she said they won't even know I'm hating them. So if I'm filled with the hate inside of me, not that I don't want justice to come for my son, but if I let that hatred ravage me, what does it do? It sets up disease. 90% of all disease comes from stress. That's mental, that's emotional. Stress will set up a physical disease in the body. And so we must do it in spite of, while we wait for justice or while we continue to fight for justice, we still have to fight every day that we can have some sense of calmness, some sense of normality in our lives, finding the calm inside of the chaos. And there's so many ways to begin to do that. And we just want to have more access to our people. That's what the Salon Community Wellness Center there in the heart of all that trauma going on in the city of Chicago, will offer peace. And that's what salam means. And so we have to be the pillars of that in our communities and help our people learn things that they can do to get themselves in a better state.
Thank you. Now, the hip hop music industry is playing a huge role in bringing Emmett Till's story to the forefront. Earlier, you mentioned um, Will Smith and Jay-Z. What artists are featured in the hip hop soundtrack?
Well, there is no soundtrack that's being done by Rock Nation or by Will Smith. That soundtrack is being produced, executive produced by myself, as well as Brother Jay Aziz, Minister Jay Aziz. And what we're doing is what I thought was that we should reach out to various artists to see if they could do a song about Emmett, connecting Emmett's story to the modern day lynchings. These young people know Trayvon, they know George Floyd, they know Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, but they don't know Emmett. And before Emmett and all of it, before any of them, there was Emmett Till. And why is that important? Because of all of those deaths, none of them is horrific as Emmett Till's death. And so they must know that. And even in fact, with this whole critical race theory, wanting to wipe those histories out, so that you won't know. Why is it important? It is important so you know what has happened, you know where we are. It clicks, it makes sense that we really haven't come as far as we think we came. And so every era of change has had its music. We had Sam Cooke. We had Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. We had, James Brown. We had Fight the Power and F the Police when the Rodney King riots happened. But where has happened in modern time? We haven't heard these artists say much. We have not heard from them, and that is by design. And so we have to hold them accountable, as my work has always been around social cause in hip hop. I've never just been in the industry just to be in it. I was in it to make a difference and use their influence to give back to these communities, to teach, to help our people, young people move forward. And so Jay-Z and Will Smith need to be backed up because they put their money and their consciousness, just even for them to have the awareness to do Emmett's story and to bring it to primetime television. That's huge. And so we need for the artists to have voice. And so we reached, just starting with some of the great artists that are in our Nation of Islam, and others, mainstream artists have been we've made contact with as well for them to get on the album. But we have, I don't know if we have a song. Well, we have one of them, and maybe we'll hear a little bit of that, of one of the songs that's on the upcoming album. So we were looking to have it out this week, but we pushed it back a little bit. But it's coming, and it's really, really impactful. So we're excited.
Now, we've heard that Whoopi Goldberg will be releasing a movie about Emmett Till, as you mentioned earlier in the segment. Is that in fact true? Are there any other movie projects planned?
Well, that is true.
Yeah.
And it's been in the works for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And Whoopi said that, you would think that there would have been a lot of people who would put money behind this in Hollywood, but that has not been the case. And that's why we really want to herald brother Jay-Z and Will Smith, continuing to take back the narrative. Okay, we cannot continue to let other people tell our stories or delete our history. And so we're so proud of them. And and we're proud of Whoopi too, because she actually shot and completed the Till project. I don't know all the details of how they got the money up and what happened with that, but I know that it is slated to come out this summer, late summer or early fall. And that will be on the big screen. It will be a big deal. And she actually plays Emmett Till's grandmother. So we're excited about that. And we're proud of her, and we're proud of Jay and Will.
Okay. We have been speaking with Sister Iman Ali. She has been a member of production on the Women of the Movement series on ABC. She is a Reiki teacher and healer. Before we close out, Sister Iman, I want to ask you, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I just want you to go to the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation, sign the petition to bring charges against Carolyn Bryant, the last member of that cast responsible for the death of 14-year-old Emmett Lewis Till there in Mississippi in 1955. If you can sign that petition, we need 300,000 signatures. We are a little bit over 200,000. Emmett Till Legacy Foundation, Google it, and please go on and sign that as well. And then sign up for anything that you can do. We are still pushing for the HR 55, the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill, to be passed in the Senate. We do also have a motion in the House of Representatives in Mississippi for an official apology to be issued to the family of Emmett Till for Mississippi's role in the covering up of his death as well. So all of these things are going to continue. This is not a movie. It is a movement. And since justice has not been served and we still continue to see modern day lynchings here in America, we must still do our part.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. We look forward to all of the projects that are coming out this year and beyond, and speaking with you again in the future.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for joining us today and tuning into National Network View News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, NNV News. This is Rosalind Parks with National Network View News. Good night.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.